Hello and welcome to Switch Scheme. Today I'm looking at the Metal Gear Solid Master Collection Volume 1. Now I'll be upfront about a pretty important fact. The last time I played a Metal Gear Solid game was Twin Snakes on my GameCube, so unlike some reviewers, I won't really have nostalgia to lean into here. You know how a review works. Let's take a look at the graphics, the technical side, the sounds, the music, the story, and the value for your dollar, and find out if Metal Gear Solid Master Collection Volume 1 is worthy of a spot on your shelf. If you like the content, drop a like and subscribe. I plan to bring more reviews, including new and old releases in the future. If you have any game you want me to review, let me know in the comments down below. First, let's take a look at the graphics, and well, this is where you're either going to love or hate this collection. See, the collection contains the HD versions of the game, which sounds great on the box cover, but the reality is that the graphical HD that they're referring to is an update that Metal Gear 2 and 3 got back in 2011 on the Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3, and the original Metal Gear Solid received no graphical touch-up. To be honest, and in my opinion, the original Metal Gear Solid just doesn't translate that well to modern controls and gaming, especially when the game is purposely holding itself at 30 FPS to really emulate that old PlayStation 1 style of play, which is slower, a little more sluggish, has a lot of pop-in and texture clipping. And sure, it really does make you feel like you're playing the original game, but it really makes you wonder, why didn't Konami give this game a little bit of an HD update itself to go along with the other two main games here? It kind of is an outlier. And therein lies the issue that I have with this Master Collection. This will be a lot of people's first introduction to Metal Gear Solid, due to it finally coming to the Switch, and I fear that the age controls and visuals of Metal Gear Solid 1 may put some people off of either buying it or even playing the first game altogether. And to be honest, the lack of any touch-up to the original game here makes this Master Collection feel a little lazy. As for Metal Gear Solid 2 and 3, as I said, these are the HD updates, and on the Switch, they look fine. They look like the old games ported to the system. I watched a few gameplays myself and looked at some screenshots to see the comparisons, and I did notice that this Master Collection is a tad brighter when looking at the original HD update. But again, you have to ask yourself, why didn't they touch these up a bit more before this release, considering it's been over 10 years since these games got any lift in the graphical department? These games really do deserve a modern day remake in the trend that we're seeing now, and hopefully we will see it sooner rather than later. Now, the NES Metal Gear and Metal Gear 2 are NES titles ported as an extra bonus, and they're great. And they also serve to help you go on a journey through the games to see how they graphically improved from the NES to the PlayStation 2, which is actually pretty neat. One other thing that I would like to mention, since I played this on the Switch and how I'm reviewing the game, they do cap the frames at 30 FPS, not only while playing Metal Gear Solid 1, but also while playing Metal Gear Solid 2 and 3. The other systems though do not cap 2 and 3 at 30 and instead can go to 60. This can lead to some instances of frame drop or just a sluggish feel to things, especially during certain cutscenes and moments. This isn't a deal breaker, but games this old really should not be struggling on a Switch, and the fact that they do really shows the age of this console and how desperately we need a next-gen update. On the sound front, there isn't much to say. If you've ever played any of these titles before, you know what you're in for. Cheesy voice acting, great sound effects, and above all else, superb music to listen to. Thankfully, most of it's here, and it all works great. Now, that isn't to say it's perfect. Some tunes and themes are missing, and if you're a hardcore player of these games, you'll instantly notice it. When it comes to the sound effects, they're perfect. They ported over well, and nothing seemed off. On the story side, what can I say? These games have always been lauded for their awesome story, and sometimes it goes over the top and it's gonna throw you for a loop. The overarching storyline through the games follows an alternate history where the Cold War went on longer than expected into the late 90s, and Solid Snake is on the case. Metal Gear Solid 2 is going to see you continue that story forward, taking place 2 to 3 years after, with an additional storyline taking place further out than that. The biggest change will be when you get to Metal Gear Solid 3, which is still set in this alternate timeline, however it serves more as a prequel as it takes place in the 60s. These games pioneered some of the gameplay tropes that we see today. A reliance on storytelling through cutscenes became more mainstay, as these were like playable movies at the time. Of course, games back then all had cutscenes, but Metal Gear Solid was one of the games at the time that really pushed the narrative through the cutscene, and it became really popular after. These games have been championed for their storylines and the twists and revelations that occurred during them, and to say anything negative regarding the story would be an insult to their legacy. Now, looking at the value for your dollar, on the Switch, the game comes out to $60, which for us Switch users is pretty high and sadly becoming more normalized. But you do technically get 5 games, and you also get a bunch of digital artwork and other goodies to go along with it, and it's a pretty big win. Keeping in mind that a new playthrough of all 5 games could take you anywhere between 30 to 40 hours, you actually will be getting a huge value for the dollar here, especially when you compare that to a $60 AAA game on a PlayStation 5 or Xbox, which new games these days tend to run you 8 to 12 hours for a full playthrough. Overall, this collection is great for two types of people. The person who loves Metal Gear Solid and loves to re-experience it every now and then and relive those moments from their past and bask in Solid Snake's origins. And the other type of person is someone who has always heard of this series but never had a chance to try it, be it limitations on what system you owned at the time, or you just never got around to it. Well, here's your chance to finally play these games on your Switch, and truthfully, all the little nitpicks aside, it's a great collection. I mean, these games are classics and beloved for a reason. One small thing I wanted to mention, because I feel it deserves to be said. I read the booklets, and unless I missed something, there's no mention of Hideo Kojima. Now, I know that they had a falling out, him and Konami, and anyone who was into the gaming news in 2015 knew all about it. It was a huge deal. But without Hideo Kojima, there is no Metal Gear, and to admit that fact felt petty to me, especially when the first book talks about the pillars of the game and how gaming evolved from the 1980s and on. This is just a personal thing, but I wanted to get it off my chest. To wrap this up, I'll say this. If you never cared about Metal Gear Solid, skip this. If it's a series you're curious about but maybe you're not sure if it's your thing, wait for it to go on sale and pick it up. For everyone else, as I stated before, buy it, play it, and enjoy the evolution of the Metal Gear Solid series.